In a world where approximately 82% of the population is not white, where 15% of the population experiences some form of disability, and where a growing number of the population identify as not heterosexual or cisgendered, our last Academy Award lineup looked like this. Yikes. Now, 4 Douglas College students will attempt to trace the history of minority representation in Western cinema in a film project that wound up being much longer than anyone could have ever anticipated. Join them as they quote academic sources, find obscure clips from long-forgotten movies, and wade through a tide of increasingly offensive stereotypes that will make you say, "Oh God, who put these people in charge of making movies? Oh, that one's for kids? Film history sucks!" How did we get here? We begin in 1941, the year the United States went to war, the People's War. Their mission was to prove that as a country, they offered the most democratic and inclusive society one could ever hope for. Except, for their constant oppression of women, manual laborers, and black people. Realizing the potential awkwardness of flying under a liberal banner in a time when a good portion of the population did not enjoy the same rights and freedoms as your average white man, the US government decided it was time for an image overhaul. Thus, President Franklin D. Roosevelt struck a deal with Hollywood studios through the Office of War Information, a government propaganda agency. In his words, the easiest way to propagandize people is to let a propaganda theme go in through an entertainment picture when people do not realize they are being propagandized. And the propaganda? Diversity. To prove that the government totally wasn't racist, sexist, or classist, the OWI put pressure on Hollywood to make films that had themes of proto-feminism, progressive racial views, and pro-labor sentiments. They wanted to show women who were happy and independent at work, and black people who were somehow okay with their status as a second-class citizen. Unsurprisingly, a lot of their efforts in the latter category fell short. In movies like David O. Selznick's Since You Went Away, the themes of unity and diversity checked nearly every box on the OWI's list. It featured an unconventional female lead, focused on the importance of democracy and acceptance of immigrants, and even had a prominent black character, who was a maid. So in that respect, they really didn't try that hard. Another propaganda film, Tender Comrade, focused on working women and their strength during the war. It sounds great in theory, but slightly less great with more information. It was really meant to reassure men that their women would not forget their place in the world while they were off at war, and were prepared to give up their jobs for the men when they returned. Also, that women wouldn't turn to lesbianism in the absence of men in their lives, which was likely a large concern at the time. The goals of the OWI were to keep everything within a certain balance. They wanted to show women as strong workers, but didn't want to give them any ideas about wanting more than to be secondary to men. They showed movies featuring black people, but the black people would be drinking gin and acting in a manner reminiscent of the early minstrel shows. And even this apparently made racists in the South angry with the OWI for being so liberal. The OWI succeeded in making the labor unions happy, though, and with movies like An American Romance managed to solidify in the national consciousness the idea of the American dream. But that's a whole other topic altogether. From these beginnings, the roles of minorities in films grew, expanded, and became slightly less offensive over time. More or less. Join us as we trace the histories of minority groups in cinematic history, such as people with disabilities, people of color, and LGBTQ people. Starring Birth of a Nation as one of the most soul-withering pieces of cinema ever produced. Psycho as a horror movie that vastly overlooks the nuances of mental illness and has made people afraid of those with mental disorders since 1960. True Lies, as that movie your parents liked that looking back is actually embarrassingly racist. And this cute 1895 movie of two men dancing together that was originally called the Dixon Experimental Sound Film, but came to be known online and in published books as The Gay Brothers. Aww. How Did We Get Here? Now available on a YouTube screen near you.